All right, and we are rolling. This is Coffee with the Coaches, episode 2. You're not burned out, you're misaligned. Dun dun dun. My name is Christopher Holmquist, and I'm joined, as always, by Peter Valancourt, my business partner and friend here in beautiful Cape Cod. What's up, Peter?
Yes, good morning. We're finally experiencing some spring-like weather on Cape Cod. Never thought it would come this year, but it's glorious. So.
Right, and just in time to talk about burnout.
Yes.
All right, so most people think that they're burned out, but they're really not. They're just living out of alignment with who they actually are, and no amount of rest fixes that. I read that, and it totally resonated with me. I've been there.
Yes,
You?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's that repetitive, heading in the wrong direction path that we get on that is just such a heavy weight to carry.
Yeah, and it's an incredibly frustrating how easy sometimes you can kind of start going there and get out of alignment pretty darn quickly, right?
Oh, yeah.
Last week we talked about how clarity starts with a funeral, so this week we're going to talk about what happens if you don't do that. Because that was the whole point of last week's episode, is that you got to get clear, you got to have a funeral, you got to bury whoever you're not willing to become, and as a result of that, you can hopefully avoid burnout.
Not literally, of course.
No, not literally. Yes, figuratively. Thank you very much. Yes. So, recapping from last week, right? It was clarity starts with a funeral. You must let a version of yourself go. Most people avoid clarity because it requires loss, right? And if you don't do that, we end up where we are right now, which is called burnout. Anything stand out from last week that we talked about?
Yeah, it's that moment to make that commitment. That sort of gift of desperation moment where you're saying, I'm going to move on from this. I'm absolutely clear that this is not the right path, or this is the wrong strategy, whatever, insert the blank or fill in the blank here.
Yeah.
But that moment where you say, I'm moving forward in a new direction, and it's that funeral mentality.
Yeah. And I think the more clearly you can, just to piggyback on that, the more clearly you can envision that funeral and just really, go as far as do something symbolic to, burn something up, bury something, I don't care what it is, but just do something that you kind of just say look, this is the start of something new and the end of something else. So yeah, that's pretty cool. As always, we like to talk about the Stoics, right? We both love Stoicism, and the Daily Stoic is an awesome book. Here's a clip that kind of ties in with this topic, right? And it is, if a person gave away your body to some passerby, you'd be furious, right? Yet you hand your mind over to anybody who comes along.
Yes, incredible. Especially today. I mean, this is a challenge that everybody has today with the development of social media, AI, all of these attacks on our psyche that we don't even realize are happening. And actually, we're willing participants sometimes. We're just sort of going through the motions and letting all this invade our mind and keeping us off that path.
Right. So, so often we equate burnout with a work overload.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, the market's crazy, so I'm just working all these hours, you know what I mean? And, you kind of, it's almost that victim mentality in a way, right? But it's misplaced attention and it's misalignment. You're giving your energy to things that don't matter. And that's what you're feeling. That's the burnout, in my mind, because we both work like dogs sometimes, right? Like weeks on end, but you're in that flow state and everything feels great, right? And there's not a hint of burnout when you're doing that.
Right.
You're a musician.
No, it energizes you.
Right. Yeah, you're a musician. You've done probably long jam sessions and your fingers are cramping and whatever else. But that's not burnout to you. That's just you in the moment.
Right.
Doing the thing.
Right. It's the other stuff that pull you down.
Exactly. And so, I literally kind of was, to use a phrase that I hate, is today years old, you know what I mean? I hate that phrase. But when I kind of put the pieces together here, you know what I mean? On this, we coach about misalignment, we talk about, this stuff all the time, but sometimes you just read something and you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true, and people do hand over their minds all the time to any passerby. You know what I mean? We just sit there and be like, all right, and then all of a sudden their priorities become our priorities.
Right. Right. I see it again, not to be repetitive. I see it so often on social media where people can just get into that echo chamber and just burn so much time and all that mental capital that's expended on that. That's where the burnout comes from. I'm just using that as an example. It could be any sort of misalignment, but that's a common one that I think you and I both see with a lot of people these days.
Yeah. And ready for the video clip line of the week?
Yes.
It is, we're not tired from doing too much. We're tired from doing what's not ours.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great.
And I think we've been talking about that, that's kind of a summation, I guess, of what we're talking about. It's not the stuff, it's not our stuff that we're burnt out over. It's the other people's stuff that we're doing.
Yeah,
burns us out.
Tired and burned out are two different distinctions.
Way different.
Yeah.
Way different. So let's break this into 3 clear kind of sections, right? So that we can kind of figure this out and wrap our heads around it. So segment 1, we're just going to kind of talk about burnout versus misalignment, right? So the key idea is that burnout equals a symptom and misalignment's the root cause of that symptom, right? People say, I need a break, but rest doesn't fix misalignment. They return and they feel the same way. So you don't need vacation, you need a realignment. So let's talk about burnout versus misalignment, realignment. I mean, where do you see that showing up for people and how does it affect them and how do they get out of it?
Well, again, to tie what you and I do, the real estate business, I see that misalignment / burnout relationship a lot with people's lead generation strategies. Something that I've gone through, I'm sure something you've gone through. Really expending a lot of time, energy, capital into things that don't contribute to that 20% that gets us our 80%. And sometimes there's nobody there to say, hey, this isn't working. You're spending all this time and energy on this direction, and the results don't justify it. So you're really feeling tired with nothing to show for it.
Right. So it's a business misalignment that needs realigning, obviously. Yep. And you're right, that shows up all the time. I was just having that conversation actually with somebody that works on our real estate team down in New Jersey and is a new admin coming onto the team. And I'm like throwing ideas out to him, and he keeps on calling me and saying like, all right, what do I need to do about this thing that we're talking about? What do I need to do about that thing? And I said, all right, so you gotta, follow along here that, we will be constantly reevaluating things and going in different directions, because one thing that we've learned after 27 years of doing this is exactly what you're talking about. It's way too easy to start going down a road and then you're spending not only your time, but thousands of dollars, right, on products or platforms or whatever it is that are totally misaligned with your business. So nobody's using the tools, nobody's doing the work, and you're just frustrated because you keep trying to, shove a round peg in a square hole.
Right. And when you're a small business owner, you're the C-level executive in all departments. So there's nobody.
Your HR, your advertising, your marketing.
So there's nobody necessarily there to tell you, this is not going to bear the fruit that you hope it does. You're learning this, sadly, on the fly. And then repositioning is really difficult because sometimes we commit to an idea and we've bought in, therefore it must be a great idea, and we just keep perpetuating that. So it's
Well, our brains, again, I think we talked about it last week, our brains want to keep things status quo, what I mean?
Yes.
We just want to, this, you chose this, therefore it must be good, so we're going to keep on going down that road as long as I possibly can with you. Dragging you behind, you know what I mean? So you said exactly, like when you are all of those departments, how do we fix it, right? And one way to fix it is to not to rely on your own brain, because we can fake ourselves out so much, but rely on the data, right? So track your numbers. I mean, every single business, I don't care if you're in real estate like us or any of the other businesses we've been in, it all comes down to the numbers, and it's really, really easy it's not really, really easy. it's relatively simple to develop a system of tracking numbers that will give you an objective idea of whether something or not is working, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Know your key metrics. You know,
Right.
your appointments, your contracts, your conversion rates, all that. Conversations. And
Make sure the numbers that you're tracking are in alignment with what you're actually doing, so that you're getting it right. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm serious,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
People track wrong shit all the time.
Yeah, I think the mistake maybe we tend to make is we get too granular. Because we don't understand the actual metrics that are moving the business. For us, it's fairly simple. When you say, I mean, it's how many people are we talking to? How many appointments are we setting? How many contracts are we having signed?
Right.
And then we can really decipher what direction we're heading in by those metrics. So if what you're doing doesn't result in any of those three things,
Right.
then that's a great opportunity to step back, pull yourself out of that echo chamber and say, all right, where am I missing here? What's the weak spot? And there are great people probably in your life that you can consult with to help you figure that out. You don't necessarily have to be the one to do it.
Correct.
Sometimes we're too close to it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, you can always, accountability partners, black hats, whatever you want to name them. They
I think you and I both love having those conversations with people.
love having them. And not, from, people always have a bad connotation around accountability or black hat or, whatever it is. And a black hat is just really somebody in a situation that is there to kind of offer the contrarian view of what it is that you're doing. Have you thought about X, Y, Z? Right? And then you can also do it just strictly by a numbers thing, right? I mean, if you want to get, a 10x return on your advertising,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really easy to kind of track and pick a time frame and say, did I get the results? Did I 10x it? Am I trending in the right direction?
Right. Am I trending?
Right.
That's a great way to look at it is, how's the path I'm on?
Right. Yeah, because you're not always going to get, some things do take time to, So anyway, we're kind of getting off topic, but it shows you misalignment is, all of these things. And we got to be careful. And so we got to recognize it, and we got to make sure that we recognize it for what it is, and not just, oh, I'm working too hard, or, oh, the market sucks, or, oh, nobody else is busy, so therefore, whatever.
Yeah, you never hear the top producing agents say any of those things that you just said.
No.
That's something that is consistent with what I've learned from them over time. When I hear people speak, it's always accountability to oneself, one's resources, one's time, never the external or exogenous factors that are affecting the market.
Right. Absolutely. So where does misalignment show up, right? That's the next segment. I mean, we move from that first conversation of, burnout versus misalignment and being able to recognize that. And so where does it show up? We've already talked about, most of these things already, right? Here's just a couple rundown of some other things. In life, doing things you should do versus want to do. Staying in roles that don't fit anymore. Well, actually, we haven't talked about some of these. This is actually good stuff, right? Think about this. Doing things you should do versus want to do. Staying in roles that don't fit anymore. I think that I can be guilty of all of those things. I think I should do more of the should versus want. I don't know. That's a kind of a weird, arbitrary thing to measure.
Yeah, well, I think what's evident in this part of the conversation is this is a human problem. This isn't I'm not proficient at my own business problem. We're always being pulled away into the comfort zone,
right.
Pulled into maybe places we want to be, but isn't part of the 20% that we need to focus on. So that's always a challenge, and that's where you kind of tie this all back to clarity, knowing those KPIs that you do that result in revenue generating opportunities for your business, because there are a million things you and I can do during the day that will have nothing to do with the bottom line, but we like doing them.
Yeah.
And surgically removing all of that maybe won't make for a happy person. So maybe finding some balance in catering to what you like to do, but also doing the things you know you need to do to be responsible with your bottom line, or leverage those things out.
Yep.
Yeah, you just hit the key ones in business, right? Leveraging them out. This is how you kind of get into that perceived burnout, where there's really misalignment, is by not leveraging out the things that you should be leveraging out, chasing things that don't align with your strengths. I think we're all guilty of that as well in business, saying like,
I have to do everything, therefore I can do everything. It's such a kind of a false mentality.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be able to self-regulate and realize that if you're chasing things that don't align with your strengths, I mean, you're like doubly burning capital, whether it's energy or time or money or whatever.
Probably the biggest barrier to growth for people that from that E to P is no one can do it as well as I can. This is my business. I know how to do it, and we try to do it all. And there's only so much bandwidth we have to be effective.
EP being experiential to
Entrepreneurial to purposeful.
Purposeful, right?
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Now you were coming up with a cool one, though. I don't
know.
know.
I mean, I'm all
We could change it.
I'm all about the experience. You know me. I mean.
But there's only so much we can do left to our own devices. Some of us have a really high threshold for accomplishment in that sense, but for the most part, finding what works, leveraging what we're not so great at, will result in growth. Getting through that ceiling of accomplishment that we bump our heads on.
Right. All right, so let's recap kind of where we've gone then. We've gone from clarity requires a funeral, right? I mean, if we're going to get really clear about our business and move ahead, and it just applies to so many different things in life, clarity is just awesome. So go back and watch that episode about clarity just because it's really cool. But if we realize that we need to, bury the past or bury a past version of ourselves, and we don't do that, we end up in this place called burnout, or we think it's burnout, where really it's a misalignment because we haven't buried that person. We're now doing things that we've outgrown. We're not leveraging. We're chasing things. We're saying yes when we should say no. We're avoiding decisions. All of those things, right? And it shows up in life and business and mindset. There's no escaping it. Misalignment feels like burnout, but it's actually resistance. It's like we're resisting something, right? I mean, and it goes back to, again, the clarity thing. You're not clear on something, so we're resisting. It's weird, and it's harmful, and it's harmful to businesses. The clearer you can get on this, not to use a pun, but I did. But the clearer you can get on clarity and, making sure that you're in alignment, the better off you're going to be, the better off your business is going to be, right?
If we just take that concept of what misalignment is and apply it to other things, like a vehicle. What happens when there's something misaligned in a vehicle? Well, it doesn't run properly and usually taxes the other components of that vehicle. Apply it to golf. Misalignment, you're never going to be able to put the ball in play if something is misaligned.
Yeah.
All of the results that you're going to experience are not going to be what the goal is, and usually they're drastically affected by that misalignment. So if we apply that theory or that concept to our business habits, our activities, I think it becomes really clear to understand, some misalignment can affect the entire operation to its core. So it's so important.
And I'll just leave it with this, and that is that, I think that alignment needs to be done on a daily basis. It's like that example of the pilot that goes up in the airplane, right? Flying from New York to LA, right? They're not going to just get up and put it on autopilot and take a snooze and 3 hours into it, wake up and say like, all right, where are we?
Yeah.
Where are we right now? And then be like, oh, we're heading to Mexico. So
I'm in Saskatoon.
I see. I went south. You went north. It was weird. So yeah, I mean, they're making micro adjustments all along the way, and that's what you need to do with your alignment. So, all right. So enough of us just blabbing about this kind of stuff. Practical application, right? Make it actionable. We got to give you guys something to do if you're listening to this, and say like, well, all right, great. We now understand that we have to recognize when we're in burnout, or recognize when it's misalignment and not burnout. You've told us all the reasons why we're doing it, all the things that we should be doing, but how do we do it, right? And this is where these questions that you need to kind of ask yourself and there's 4 of them, right? So we'll walk through and we'll just kind of talk about them. Number 1, what am I doing right now that feels heavy? Right? What do you think about that question?
Well, to me, there's always that disconnect by something, how it feels and what it's doing. And that's what this question to me is really designed to break out and identify. Because some things that feel heavy actually produce results.
Yeah.
Some things that feel heavy because we know somewhere in the process it's not in alignment with where we need to go.
Yeah.
So really being honest with yourself and looking at those activities from that perspective, that's where, if it feels heavy, it probably merits some further investigation.
You said it. I was just gonna say that it's not that it's good or not that it's bad, just because it feels heavy, but
Right.
that it merits further investigation. Like, is it a good heavy? Is it that heavy that you get from like, shit, I kind of just stepped out into the abyss, and I'm buzzing with alignment, but
Yes.
it feels heavy because
Right.
this is a big step for me.
Right. It's the difficult part, but I know that if I do it will produce
Right.
results.
And then there's the heavy that, like, literally the second you wake up, and you open your eyes and you're just like, your entire body feels like it's like 15 pounds heavier. That's not a good heavy.
No. And I think we've all been there. So if you're hearing that and it resonates with you, congratulations, you're human. You're a business owner.
You're a business owner. You're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
All of those things. So if you do feel like the negative heavy, the kind of the wake up and this is not right heavy, the next question becomes, where am I out of alignment?
Yeah.
How like, what's that conversation with yourself look like? Or is it conversation with yourself or somebody else?
Yeah, I think it's maybe both. Maybe a little bit more of the latter. Because sometimes we can't trust our own lying eyes type of deal. It's just a human condition.
Yep.
And I always use that golf analogy where you feel like your swing is on plane, in alignment, your setup's right, and then your friend's like, hey, why do you pick up your right foot every time you swing? You're like, I didn't even know I was doing that.
Right.
So having that trusted advisor, that sort of mentor to help you work through that, I think that is key to working through this.
And I will veer a little bit in the other direction, which is, I think that you need to develop a self-monitoring way also to make sure, because you won't always have either the money to have another person or be in a situation where you can rely on that other person. I think you need both. I mean, I think we both agree that you need both.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good practice to kind of sit there and say, all right, well, how do I know? Because my feeling of misalignment is going to be totally different than yours.
Yep.
For me, I might wake up in a cold sweat. For you, you guys might like get totally hyper, even more hyper than you already are, and not sleep or do whatever.
What does that mean?
Right, what does that mean? So yeah, I mean, two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that self-governance, but also not being afraid to seek counsel.
Yeah. All right. Which then leads to one of my favorite questions, because God, this resonates with me. What am I avoiding?
Yeah. Yep, it's another procrastination
It's weird. I mean, I feel like every time that I'm seriously out of misalignment, it's not because necessarily of something that I've like overtly done, it's because of something that I'm avoiding.
Yeah. And the longer you push it off, the bigger it comes, and the more space it rents in your head, and it's definitely a big one.
Wow, I'm just thinking about that one and just what else am I avoiding in life and stuff like that, all right? So let's go back, business, mindset, life, right? Or mindset, business, life, whatever we talk about all the time. And that is that, these things, these questions apply to all of it. These are life questions. This is not just the business question or a in the moment question or, whatever. I mean, this is life, this is relationships, right? What am I doing right now that feels heavy in this relationship? Where am I out of alignment? What am I avoiding? What conversation am I avoiding or whatever? So I think it's a huge topic. So think about that one too. What am I avoiding? All right. And the final question, and I think this takes it kind of full circle, what version of me is still hanging around? Because I think that if you're doing something that feels heavy, if you're out of alignment and you realize where that is and you realize that you're avoiding some things, it's going to inevitably lead back to some version of you that you're not able to ditch.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And like you said, these questions are something maybe you're asking yourself on a daily basis to make sure you're in alignment. But that last one is sort of, that could be some sort of existential issue for your business if you're not able to separate yourself from those old, difficult, hard to break patterns that lead to misalignment.
It reminds me of the I learned in coaching this 4 focusing questions, right? If you need to kind of bring a client back, and that is, what am I doing right now that I shouldn't be doing? What am I not doing that I should be doing? And I can't remember the last 2 off the top of my head.
Yeah, they're great. I've had you read them to me before.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel so bad about myself.
Yeah, and it's just like, get real, right?
Yeah.
Get real with yourself, and again, for me, it is, if I'm avoiding things, that's the heaviest of the heavy. I mean, and that is the burnout of the burnout. I mean, for this particular person right here, because we all know, I mean, the relief that you feel when you have that difficult conversation, when you don't avoid the thing that you were avoiding, we all know how incredibly well or good that feels. So we just got to do it. So here's your action step, right? Not only do you have to ask yourself these questions, write them down, think about them, post them up somewhere, but then also take this further action, and that's find one thing this week that feels off and either fix it or eliminate it.
Right. And, for me, this action step doesn't necessarily have to apply to your business.
No.
This, could apply to your health life, your spiritual life, your relationships. I think it's a really powerful exercise to do because most of us, if we had to drink the truth serum and sat in a chair and said, tell me one thing that feels off, you'd be able to identify it pretty quickly. Because something is, not everything is always in perfect harmony, especially when you're an entrepreneur. Life doesn't always portray the perfect picture of balance, right?
That's right. Yeah, balance is a myth. We know that. And a great book sitting right behind us. I referenced it last week, I think, already. But The One Thing is just such a great book, and it talks about that very topic, that, this whole work-life balance is a myth. You know what I mean? I don't think there's any entrepreneur that sits there and is like, oh yeah, I got, my solid 8.5 hours of sleep last night, only worked 42 hours this week, and, it was great to take my 7th vacation of the year. Well, maybe the 7th vacation, for real estate agents, sometimes they do, because,
they get listings and they get on the plane.
But, so, burnout isn't always about doing too much. It's about doing what's not yours, right? That's what was kind of like the big thing here. And until you get back into alignment, nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
I think that is, that is a great one to leave you with right there, because and until you get back into alignment, nothing changes. You're not going to sleep your way out of misalignment. You're not going to think your way out of misalignment. You're not going to, bury your head in the sand out of misalignment. Like, you have to do it. You just have to, get clear, see where you're misaligned, and either take a step to fix it, eliminate it, and get the hell out of there. So, in the last 50 seconds that we've got, right? If you're into this kind of a conversation that we're having here, mindset, business, growth, entrepreneurship, please subscribe to our channel. That's what we're trying to build here. I promise you, what do we got in store for people? We're not just going to sit here and talk, right?
Right. No, what we're trying to do is build a community.
Yep.
We happen to live in what I think is the most vibrant and beautiful place on the planet, Cape Cod.
Yep.
So we're going to try to explore some of the entrepreneurial folks in our world here.
Yep.
Ask them to come on and share some of the things that contributed to their success, positive and negative.
Yep.
And try to learn from them and share with all of you. So.
Yeah. And so, we're going to try to take it on the road. We're going to have people in here. We're going to try to mix it up. But yeah, Cape Cod is this amazingly diverse, from a business standpoint, and a place that is skewed, I think, towards entrepreneurs.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They don't have a lot of box stores here,
Right.
and big chains and stuff like that. It's all people just making it happen.
Yep.
So join us next week, and we're going to have a fantastic topic for you then as well. Have a great day. Thanks.